Hello, this is Debbie McAllister, and this is Light Up Your Worth. I am so excited to bring you my guest. You just heard her a couple weeks ago, and we said we were going to do a part two because we had so much delicious conversation. Well, she's back. Tracie Mahan is an international channel, a psychic. Lily's here too, a psychic medium, a highly tuned empath, a clairvoyant, hypnotherapist, a QHHT level 3 practitioner, a family coach, NLP practitioner, and a Reiki master. She's very talented. For over the past 3 decades, she has dedicated herself to her personal path of spiritual and psychic development. Tracie comes from a highly sensitive and intuitive family and has fortified her natural gifts with training and practice, enabling her to connect with guides, angels, ascended masters, spiritual console, and galactica counterparts. And she's activated Lilly in the background. So it was like, what are we on now? In addition to being a clear channel of messages from these realms, her expertise also includes offering clients' perspectives through looking at past lives to identify important connections with the present incarnation. Welcome back, Tracie.
True. I love that the dog has been quiet, and then as soon as you start talking, boom, here it is.
Right? I know. She is just like all of a sudden, I think I'm energized and I want to play.
She's going, Daniel's coming. Daniel's
I
coming.
know she must be. She's
Yeah.
like waking up and, like she's just looking at me going, like she wants to play all of a sudden. Yeah. She's been quiet for hours and hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It makes complete sense. Yeah.
I am so excited that you're here, that we get to continually talk about our conversations. And I think this time we were going to talk about generational ancestral healing. That's a juicy subject.
So juicy. So much to be said there. One of the things that you mentioned that I do is the QHHT work, which is quantum healing hypnosis technique by Dolores Cannon. And I have been finding through those sessions and through the sessions that I do with the channeling with Daniel, that there is a lot going on with our generations. A few generations back, we started the healing of the ancestors, and it's been kind of mind-blowing for me. So I think it'd be fun to talk about that.
That would be. So when you think about a couple generations back, I know I mentioned my age frequently because
27.
Yeah, 27. Actually, I don't want to go back to those 20s. That was that big lessons to learn, right? Like, whew. Yeah. I was a lot of fun back then, but but I was learning a lot of stuff. But
yeah.
But so I insert my age, not so much because I want to go around telling everybody my age, but I think it helps put context to when I'm talking about experiences. Like I was born in 1966, and so I was raised in the 70s. So I was raised, came of age in the 80s and then the 90s, and then have matured through different decades of and witnessing the advancements of the energetic healing. Even 15 years ago, nobody had really heard about Reiki.
Right.
Like when I remember being attuned 20 years ago, and it was like, whoa, what is that magical? Like it was so out there that like you didn't really go around talking to everybody. And now you fast forward 2 decades with the differences. So that's why I like to reference the age for people listening. They can put it into their own lifetimes if they never saw how different it was, or maybe they have as well, coming up of age, the same group.
Yeah, I started diving into this when I was 19. Like things started popping up for me, and the exploration of truth seeking started back then. So that's 30 years back. And I'll announce my age too. I'm 51. And so 19, trying to find information in this way. I think I think Doreen Virtue was a big thing on the market at that time. If there was anything, it was that.
It was her. Yeah.
It was her. She, and I got some angel books and different things of that nature, and just started exploring that stuff. And it's been an extraordinary ride to try and find this stuff. And then I don't know if you remember when like James Von Prague and John Edward came out with their shows where they did mediumship for the audience.
I do remember that. And
and that was like late 90s.
And it was like,
or 2000. And so we're talking, 12 years later, finally something comes out that's more public. They were the ones to start to normalize this stuff for the bigger collective. But yeah, it was hard to find anyone that did any of this kind of stuff. And there was little groups that I could find, and somehow I did find them, but synchronicity always brought it to me anyways. But from back then to now, and I was always told I had the most beautiful, wonderful mentor through all of my psychic growth. She was just amazing. And but she always told me, you're doing it the hard way, like you're the one plowing the path. And then she goes, and when you're older, people will fast track this stuff because of all the work that people are doing now to get this platform out there. Then other people will come in, and we've seen it over and over and over again. COVID was a huge launch of fast trackers. I mean, people they got put on lockdown, and 2 months later they're sitting in my chair getting QHHT sessions done. And I'm like, so when did you find Dolores? Oh, about 2 months ago. And I'm like, and you're already here in this chair? What? And I'm like, man, it took me years to figure all that out. And so I've started putting it together. Yeah, we are fast tracking it now because we got the books out there. We got the videos out there. This has become the new normal for a lot of people. And it's become, that fashionable thing to do and be a part of all of this. So yeah, it has been an incredible ride. And from 20 years ago, 30 years ago to the information you can find today, you couldn't bring this subject up with just anybody. You couldn't walk up and be like past lives or near-death experience or spiritual anything. You had to use, like people would be like, spiritual, what do you mean? Source, what do you mean? What's that? Well, like God. Oh, why don't you just say God? And so incredibly different. Now you could go in a mall and start talking about this, and probably 10 people would come around and join in, so
yeah, it's amazing how many things, like even essential oils were such a big deal, right? And now you have MLMs, right, who've been out there, and you have housewives, and they're talking about all the, like, it's just so integrated. And how many people even have, like different types of, I'm not wearing a crystal right now, but the crystals. Yeah.
Amethyst.
Oh, that's beautiful. It matches Daniel.
Yes. My theme.
Yeah. It's just it's been such a journey. So I'm excited that people who are listening have either been on this kind of slow journey, and it was, or they've kind of come in more fast track. Cause I've noticed that people being 56, like people there's a lot of people in their 20s and the 30s who seem to know a lot more, or are more comfortable with a lot of the whole the spiritual awakening, which is this huge area. I mean, you just listed out like how many years each of the things that are in your bio took. Right. And now you can go online and just become a Reiki master versus, where we were like, no, do level 1, you got to integrate it because you're going to have all this stuff come up, and then go on to level 2 and then practice and then, go on. And
it's no more fast track.
Yeah. So, and people weren't really talking about generational ancestral healing, or even that it was a thing. And I noticed that, like, I started to do research on it. I have I have a master's in healthcare administration. And so during that, what's the one thing you learn is how to go research.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to find out how many like universities have done paid studies on generational healing. And so now they're actually talking about it, especially with people who, people of color who are in different, like so much, we all have it, but then some cultures have so much,
Yeah.
that's happened to them, you know, indigenous people. I mean, what generationally, what they've been through. And so I have found generational ancestral healing super fascinating, especially as us as women. When you
Yeah.
look back at like the last 100 years, we didn't even, could barely vote barely 100 years ago with the suffrage.
Yeah. Just incredible changes in everything, in human rights, and in the in the ability to vote, like you were saying, but in our technology and everything that we've got going on right now, everything is speeding up, and such an incredible thing. And in fact, Daniel giggles and says, you guys won't be using devices much longer. It's like, we'll use them for things like this, but for as far as communicating with each other or anything like that. And I literally just had this happen right before the show. I had just gotten a new husky puppy, and I'm not sure if I don't think I had the puppy when we did our first show. So the gal that I got the puppy from, little Lulu was we were sitting outside at the outside patio table, and she gets up on one of the chairs, and she's sitting there at the table looking like she's ready for us to serve her dinner, right? So I took this cute little picture of her. And I'm thinking, oh, I should send that to the lady that I bought her from, and share with her how cute she's being. And right as I grab my phone and I go to start texting or messaging her, ping, she had written me. And it's just these things are going to start happening more and more and more. Like, we're picking up on each other, and knowing who's pinging, who's calling, who's communicating before they do it, answering a question before you actually ask it, and doing that. And my client today, I forgot to tell her that she was doing that. I was literally listening to her tell her life story, and in my mind I'm thinking, don't forget to ask her blah 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 blah. And just as I would say it, then boom, she's answering that question as if I had said it out loud. And I was like, wow, that was really cool. I'm going to try that again. And it happened multiple times where she would be talking about something and you don't want to interrupt. So, and my memory, it's like by the time she's done talking, I'll probably forget what I wanted to ask. So then I would repeat it in my head. Don't forget to ask her about this part. Don't forget to ask her about that. And then boom, she would answer it. And I'm like, yeah, that happened more than once now. Okay. And that was just the way the session was going. It's like she would answer the questions before I could ever ask them. And it was really cool. But that's where we're going. We're going to places where telepathy will be it'll be just as natural as speaking out loud. And we'll see pictures in each other's heads, and like exchange thoughts and things like that. And it's pretty exciting when you think about it, or at least I think it's exciting. Some people might feel like, isn't that invasive to my privacy? But when we get to that point where, like if we're having a conversation and I'm thinking about, my puppy or something like that, and you're getting this visual of the puppy, that's kind of fun. I don't think that it's going to be something that happens if we're not wanting to share that information. I don't think that would be available. But when we're open and our energy expands out, then we become more readable, right? More accessible for that information. So we're all going to learn how to do that, and shut it down when we don't want to share it, and open it up when we do. When we're thinking about somebody and they call us, that's fun.
Yeah, I love when that happens.
Yeah,
it makes you feel really good. And I realized too is that you've mentioned Daniel, and if somebody hasn't caught the previous episode, which is only 2 episodes before this, visually, Daniel is on a picture on the wall behind her. for the listeners. So if you're on YouTube, you can see it, but if not, you can see it. And Daniel is her channeled Altarian.
Octurian.
Altarian.
Yeah.
And
it's an Octurian council that there's several on the council. There's one that's female that I refer to her as the Imperial. And then Daniel is apparently an aspect of myself that is incarnated in Arcturus that channels through me. And hopefully we'll get a chance to bring that through today a little bit if it works out. So
yeah. So now what if somebody's never heard of Arcturus?
you're going to get it one of these days. You're going to say that exactly right.
maybe one day I'll be channeling it and it will just come through me.
Didn't we get you to do light language or something last time? I think
no, we said next time we met I would be doing light language.
Oh, and there we go.
Yeah. And I haven't yet.
Oh
yeah.
I think it's because you just need me to pressure you a little more to do it. But
yeah.
Okay, what was your question?
What if they've never heard of, like, what's
the Octurians?
Arcturus?
Yeah. There's a lot of things that none of us have heard about that are out there that exist. When I think about Star Wars or Star Trek and they bring on all these different alternative looking beings that are part of the shows and stuff, it's really interesting because every once in a while I'll be like, I feel like I've seen that one before. It's like the ones that have the big octopus looking arm on their head, hair, whatever they want to call it. And it's like, I've been visited by those guys. Those are real beings. I've seen one in my bedroom. Okay. And it's like, it's really cool. So there's a lot of things out there that even the ones who have explored this and explored this and explored this beyond anything that I've done, there's still more. There's always more. It's infinite. The possibilities of what's out there is infinite. And so Arcturians are kind of like the Palladians, Syrians, those councils, the Andromedans. We got Anshar, we've got Telos, we got all these different collectives. They're all here right now in support of us. We are them, they are us. We're volunteers. Dolores Cannon's book, 3 Ways of Volunteers, Doreen Virtue, the Indigo Crystal Rainbow Children. We're here because the planet was in a destructive phase again. We've gone through Noah's Ark, we've gone through the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria, we've gone through these collapses of civilizations over and over and over again in our history. And so the story goes that all these collectives got together and they said they're on that track again. They created a bomb. Now they're gonna, have a nuclear war and destroy each other. How can we can't just wipe them out and try and start over again. We need to evolve this planet. And they said, how do we do that? And so they came up with the volunteers. And so the volunteers come in, and there's so many different versions of what the volunteers do, why they're here. But as we come in, we become part of the free will system, right? And we become part of this because we are a planet of non-interference. These guys can't come in and just do things. So as volunteers, we integrate into life forms here, become part of the free will system, and open our free will to bring the energy in. And we're raising vibrations through that. We're raising vibrations through, this is where we're going to jump into the ancestral healing. We are healing imprints on this earth. The earth is healing, and we're helping to heal imprints of this earth from wars that go back centuries and who knows how far back, beginning a time of our planet where we've always been at war with each other, and all these catastrophes and suffering and violence and greed and all that stuff that's been imprinted into our planet. All the overuse and over consuming and neglect and all that stuff. And so the planet's healing. How do we know? Because we can see it all surfacing like it does in us. When we are healing something, it surfaces and it shows up as a bad mood. We're cranky, we're bitey, we're dealing with stuff, and we're having emotions show up that we thought we dealt with years ago, kind of thing. And here it is again. And that's what the earth's doing. We got all this stuff merging up through the earth, and as we are sensitive human beings, we are the outlets for those purges. We're expressions of it through our actions, through what we're doing. We are expressing the vibration of the planet because we are empathic beings that are experiencing it with the planet. So we're purging this stuff. We're purging it for the planet. We're purging it for the ancestors. We're purging it for the future of our future generations. We're purging it. We've been here purging it. We were talking about this briefly before we got started, that what I've been being shown in the last couple of weeks is that the ancestral healing, we started working on that at least 2 generations ago, if not further, where let's say there's abuse or neglect with the masculine energy of the family. So, a masculine, the father is abusive of the children or something. So the father comes in and plays that role to the child. The child comes in, I'm going to be a better father, attempts to be a better father with his children, but still struggles to get through some of that. And then the children of that father finally get it right, and they turn around and become the good father that all 3 of them were trying to be, but we're still working through that ancestral karma of the ancestor abuse. So they were showing me that there's been at least 3 generations to purge some of this abuse that's been happening on this planet, but how orchestrated it's all been, and how full circle, some of these clients that I'm working with, I'm seeing it in my office where these children finally broke through that pattern, became the parent that the others wish they could have been, and then mend the fences with the parent that's still here, that it comes full circle. You got forgiveness of this past, and you've got a new start for the new generation to come. And really exciting things like that coming in. And it's just kind of mind-blowing when you conceptualize how much time in our earth years this is actually, we've been working on this and coming in as teams and working through that first wave, third wave, or second wave and third wave of volunteers coming in to work together to end this karma and move this earth into healing. So that's what I got to share on that. And I know you do a lot of things around this too. So talk to me about what comes in for you with that.
So I want to clarify for my own understanding, and maybe this will help with the listeners as well, is that so for the 3 generations that the volunteers have been coming in to do generational healing, is that, so I think I'm part of the wave that came in for one of the earlier volunteers that came in the 60s then.
Yeah.
So does that mean that it's my mother and my grandmothers, that there was actually volunteers in
I would
during
say probably your mother.
like she's
Possibly your grandmother.
like in the
Because I know
40s.
my grandmother. Yeah, I know my grandmother was very connected to the angels, and she would get messages, but she would never tell anybody. And then when I started doing this, she was like, I get messages like that too. I would talk to the angels like that too. And yet nobody ever knew that she was doing this. It was put in a format that would be acceptable for the Catholic Church or whatever. She would word it in the ways that would work. Or the Holy Spirit maybe come in and gave me this message or whatever. But she was doing this. Then my mom is incredibly empathic, and I've done sessions on her where we have been shown that she comes not just from the angelic realm, but part of the archangels as well, and connected to all of that, and had come in, and then Patan, and there's 5 of us kids in the family, and I'm the only one. I'm not saying that my siblings aren't spiritual, but I'm the one that's doing what I do. And they've one's in real estate, one farms, that kind of stuff, and just what you would probably consider a regular day job kind of stuff. But they're very spiritual in their own practice. But it's interesting because I would go to these classes with mom and go get my Reiki certification with mom. And so I'm I'm positive she's part of that generational thing for me. And then my kids moving forward, they're breaking patterns from both myself and their father and his side of the family, and healing the ancestors on both legs of that tree, and getting and moving that energy for the collective in that way for both sides of the family. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah. So that makes sense then. If my mom is born in the 40s, then I think, gosh, I don't want to quote my mom's age. She's still with us. She won't be really happy about that. If you have a
Be proud
56
of it.
daughter, she was 18 when she had me.
Yeah.
And I'm 56, so people can do the math
Do
faster
math.
than I can, right? But she's born in the 40s. So,
Yeah.
right, I think that would be that. If I take my calculator out real quick, right?
Yeah,
Like,
my parents were born in the 40s. They're still here as well.
yeah, like
So, yeah.
1947, 1948. I think she's born in 48, if I'm doing the math right, depending on when I was born versus her birthday. And Lily is really like, this is so unusual for her to keep whining. So I apologize for anybody if you find that.
She's waiting for you to speak to her in light language.
I think so. I think she's waiting for something. I don't know. And so she actually was sensitive because she was always been super sensitive. Like in the 70s, which she would have been that age of mother's little helpers, right? For all of the women who were like kind of like on the edge with all the angst that was coming up. I bet you all of those mother's little helpers from that movie that they highlighted, The Valley, whatever it was, that they talk about that in the 70s, right? The mother's little helper, the uppers and the downers. I think they were downers, that they were actually giving moms, housewives, who were super sensitive to everything that was coming on. And I think my mom had some type of prescription for a bit with 3 little people running around, being sensitive and being different. And when we got to, I would say, elementary school, the house that we lived on used to be farmland in San Jose. And we had, like, we would see this ghost at night who would come around and check us in a white gown, like a nightgown is, and now I can't think of her name. And my mom was always like, yeah, she saw her too. But then it got to this point, and I brought this up on another an interview, because all of a sudden I was remembering this.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I'm like, okay, I haven't thought about that in 30 plus years, right? Like, oh yeah, we used to have somebody in the house, and I wasn't afraid of them, but they were more like checking on us. And my mother believes that that was actually a grandmother, like her grandmother, who was coming to check on us to make sure that we were safe. But since then, I would say in the last 5 years, what interested me in generational ancestral healing was I started to do some basic timelining of, like, when I was born, my mother was born, my grandmother was born. And that's when I realized, like, my, my great grandmother was around when they couldn't vote. Like, she was part of the suffrage, apparently, out in rural, middle of America, kind of dangerous to be able to do that. And, not wealthy farm people, farmers. And so, but what I've discovered is that there's been sexual trauma back for at least 3 generations that we know. And I think what I've come to realize too is that that is so common for us as women here.
Yeah.
And so healing all of the stuff that come with that type of trauma. And that has not happened with I had 3 natural siblings, and one of them has passed from a drug overdose. But she lived to like 40, I think she was 40 or 42. And but she was always this like tortured little girl. But yet my sister and I always call it the more, we didn't have any trauma growing up in our household, but I think we had, from what I've understand from one of the therapists I had on, is we had more of the perfectionist trauma of trying to be
Oh,
perfect,
yeah.
which is trauma in itself. Like nobody gets away from some type of trauma growing up just because of this
Yeah, no
human
one does.
experience, right?
Right.
So it's either the perfectionist or the actual trauma, the trauma that people think of with really difficult childhoods.
Yeah.
And that's more normal. So when I think about generational ancestral healing, I'm thinking about that. That's the initial stuff. But what I've realized is even being able to I'm taking a course and I can't get something right. And I'll be darned if that's not, it just got pointed out to me today that, oh, this sounds a little bit of your perfectionist stepping in. And I was like,
Oh,
oh my gosh,
there it is.
like there it is. That's all part of this healing that also happens. Some of the things that we don't even think about.
Don't even think about. Yeah. But we wouldn't have the tools to address that, or to, as humankind, the tools we have today to work through our emotional traumas and mental, emotional, physical traumas, both for ourselves and for our ancestors. We wouldn't have those tools if it wasn't for the ancestors and what they went through that propelled people to get to this place where we find these tools so that we can heal these things. Because there would, we had to get to that evolved place of looking into hypnotic practices, of looking into what are some of the other ones that, well, the Reiki energy, looking into body talk, looking into all these different modalities that are out there, emotion code work, all of the things that
Mhm.
we have now that tap into different things. I worked with a gal that was having side pain, and when we asked her higher self, where's the side pain coming from, her liver was having a hard time processing the emotion. I mean, it was a physical thing, like, oh, don't take as much salt. But what it was is the emotion that was behind that was sadness. And we went on a journey to find that sadness. Where did that sadness originate from? Found it and worked with that piece and relieved the emotion that was coming up or surfacing in the form of an ailment. Because, and that's Julia Cannon has done that work so much with her Soul Speak book and bringing to attention. And I know that Louise Hay has done the same thing. And there's other books out there where our bodies are talking to us and telling us things. So when we have these physical things appear, pinch in the shoulders, like, or the pain in the neck, and you're like, oh man, I slept funny, right? And then if you got to thinking about it, you'd be like, well, wait a minute, no, I've been going through this thing that's been a real pain in the neck, and now it's surfaced in a physical outcome. And I had kidney stones a few years back. I had kidney stones, and I called Julia up and I said, okay, just got back from urgent care. They said I have kidney stones. Can you help me work through this? And she's like, okay, well, the first thing I would want to ask you is what's pissing you off? Where are you feeling stuck and it's making you mad? And it was so literal. And we broke it down and figured it out of what was going on in my life at that moment. And literally, like, I came back from the urgent care and it takes a lot for me to go in. so I know I was in pain. I was in a lot of pain. And by the time her and I were done talking, the pain was gone. I never passed a stone. And I was using some crystals also, just waving the crystals around my back and different things and asking to break this stone down so that it wasn't creating so much pain. But I was in a lot of pain. And we talked, we figured out what it was emotionally. And I never had pain again from that moment. I was expecting, there was that part of me that was still, that could not have actually gone away. That had to be the painkiller finally kicked in, but I had just taken the painkiller. So, it kicked in really fast if it did. And so, So I was, but you know, my logical mind wanted to make sense of why the pain went away. Well, it never came back. It never came back. It never came back. I never passed the stone. I was in pain for like 2 days before I actually finally went in.
Oh
So I
my
know that
gosh.
it was not just me going, oh, I have a backache, you know. No, it was me almost to my knees in pain going, all right, I guess I better go in and get this, you know, see if there's something I need to do that's bigger than drink a lot of water. You know, and so and then to sit down with her, you know, having the diagnosis, having the confirmation, it's a kidney stone, working with her on that, boom, it's gone, never passed the stone, you know, it just went away, it dissolved. And I was like, my goodness, I'm like your poster child for this work that you do, Julia, with finding out the emotion behind the illness. And I've done this with shoulder pains. I've done this with, I had plantar fasciitis in my right foot. And it was during a time where I was really struggling on, I wanted to move forward in a certain way. And there's that right foot stepping forward, forward movement, right side. And I wasn't able to do that. I was feeling very restricted, very bound by that pain in the foot. Wouldn't let me step forward, right?
Oh, I had that too. I
Did you?
actually had that before I ended the relationship with my son's dad of 20 years. Like finally, like
So you finally broke free and was able to step forward. Then did
yeah,
it get better?
it did. And then for the most part it's been better. And then when it surfaced, actually, I would say this last year again, my knees were starting to feel, and I thought, oh, it's all that kickboxing I did after that end of the relationship, right? Like all that anger I was getting out.
Yeah. By the way,
And
that's a great way to get the anger out. It really is. And it give yourself
yeah,
permission to be mad. That's
yeah,
another thing. Give yourself permission to be mad. Sometimes life sucks. Sometimes it throws you a curveball.
yeah.
So
And I actually went and had somebody go do like almost like a physical therapist, like a massage therapy, but she worked on these certain points of where it was, and it wasn't
oh,
even in my feet. It was further up in my on my legs.
in your leg
And
and then
she
that, yeah, like
yeah,
that nerve in the back and
yeah. And she worked on it and actually released what was there and stale in a different part of my foot, and it has not been back.
oh,
And that was a couple months ago.
isn't that amazing?
And I'm like, "Oh, my knee pain," where I thought, "Well, it's just because I walk up and down the stairs multiple times a day, a good 20 times a day." And that went away. I didn't hear all that, like, crunchy cartilage kinda stuff that was happening. And I got original knees here, and I used to be an athlete when I was younger, and not so much now, but, and but I was hard on the body, physically, I did a lot of stuff that did, just start wearing parts out, right? And so, but it was really amazing. And I went and looked up in my book. I've been um doing, I think I have The Metaphysical Anatomy by Evelyn Rose is who I've done some of the stuff with, as well as Louise Hayes. So I went and pulled it out too to figure out, okay, what am I not moving forward with? Where am I
Yeah,
stuck? And I'll be darned if
they
um
sure help, don't they?
yeah.
And I encourage anybody to get a book like that. I'm gonna be partial to Julia because she's a friend of mine, but I reference her book all the time. But there are others out there. I have another one called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die, and
Oh,
it's
yes.
a
I have that
wonderful
book too.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. And again, Louise Hay, and there
Mhm.
are other books out there. So find something that resonates and get it, because you're gonna find, that our stuff will start to surface in a physical way. And we get to go on the journey of figuring it out.
Yeah. And then you get to help people
Yeah,
through those things. Now, I've also heard the timeline, if something starts to surface, it's like go back, and when you started, go back about 2 years of what was going on in your life.
yeah,
I don't know about, the timeline. So if something's starting to surface now and actually into a physical form, you go back I mean, is that 2 years a good general rule,
I
or
would
it could be
probably
something simple?
scan at least 2 years. Sometimes it's childhood trauma that's been surfacing or milling around in there and finally surfaces. So, but usually there's something that'll trigger it to make it surface or bring it up for you. So yeah, that's probably a good rule of thumb. Julia will usually say, about when did that start and what were you going through at that time? But yeah, you can look at all the stuff because it's not going to happen overnight, right? I mean, the pain in the neck thing kind of does.
Yeah.
But some of that stuff, like if you're dealing with a cancer or you're dealing with some sort of tumor or fibromyalgia or something like that, that's probably something that has been coming in as interrupting your frequencies for a long time and formed itself into this physical outcome. So yeah, there's a good reason to go back and look at
Yeah.
that.
Now, how does that tie in to this ancestral healing our ancestrals, our
Well, I think that,
ancestors? Let me see if I can say the
yeah,
right word.
and it makes sense that, again, here's another modality that we were able to figure out through our ancestors dying of cancer, dying of lung disease, dying of all these things. And we've been on these journeys because these are people we love and we care about, and we're broken because they're gone now. And then we have to look at, wait a minute, was that hereditary? Is that something that's going to be passed on to me? What are we looking at here? How do I heal that? How do I not take that on? And so all of this is all about the ancestors, right? Because we love them enough to research why this happened to them. And that's how we got to this place of figuring it out, because people have gone on journeys. I heard this story about this guy that had found out he had cancer, like stage 4 cancer. And so he quit his job and he said, well, if I've only got 4 months to live, I'm going to go enjoy that time. Right. And so he quits his job and he moves back to Sicily where his family lived on a winery, winery, whatever they call it in Sicily. Sorry. And so then he just spent his days sipping on wine and watching the kids play out in the yard and just being out in nature. And 4 months go by, 6 months go by, a year goes by, he goes back in, they can't find cancer in him anywhere because he took himself out of that toxic place. Things like that were happening to people where they changed the behavior or the environment that they were in, and the illness goes away. They start enjoying their life. Well, I'm not going to spend my last days like this. And then they go out and start enjoying their life, and it cures the thing that they were suffering from. And so people started paying attention to that and started taking notes of this and getting us all to these places with these modalities, with this idea that, we need to do the things that we're passionate about, the things we love to do. If we want that longevity, if we want those long lives, we were put here to experience really long lifetimes. And in the evolution of where we've been going through these hardships, through these more denser energies that we're putting out there with, money and feeling the lack of abundance and all of those things, those denser energies were bringing in the illnesses. And so now we're learning that, and now we can move out of that and move into a higher vibration, into a frequency that doesn't allow for those things to take over our bodies and bring in the cancers or the illness or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. You know what I find really interesting too about the whole our ancestors is that, and healing is that I believe this in every part of me, is that is the financial impacts that it has on people's ability to have abundance. Like whatever people's beliefs are with money, that they attach all these emotions to it, and we form beliefs, and some of them are our beliefs, and then some of them are the beliefs that have been passed down of here. I mean, decade after decade after decade, when and how powerful the going through and taking a look at all of our own beliefs depending on how we were raised, those environments, changing your environments. Like if you can't even ever imagine having a certain lifestyle, or you attach, oh, what do they do to be able to do that? Oh, and then there's so many layers of that, of, when you think about where our country started, if it's just, we just look at the US, how many, 100 years ago, my great grandmother, they were on a farm.
Yeah.
Most people were in a farm communities.
Yeah. I
And
grew up on a farm. My family came out from the Netherlands, and on my dad's side, and they started farming out in this area, and so I come from a generation of farmers and hardworking, fields and animals and livestock and all of that, growing up around that stuff. And that lack mentality, and we have plenty of food, but we don't have money. We have our garden, we have our fruit trees, we have our ability to can and do that stuff, but everywhere else we're broke or can't afford to do these things. And it's an interesting thing to overcome, that's for sure, to move through that poverty mindset.
yeah, and this might be a bizarre example, but it popped into my mind. And so was that growing up, I read the Little House on the Prairie books. They were very popular, right, in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so I went and I started to somehow this last year, I got really interested in wanting to know more about that background. And so I started to read more about the Ingalls, and come to find out was that there's a lot of stuff in those books that weren't quite all the way it really happened. So, like, Pa, the dad, had actually, and they don't talk about it in the book, back in the days, at one point, they did move around a lot and they did not have a lot of resources. At one point, he wasn't able to feed his family. And so back then, they didn't have, like food pantries. You
No.
actually, to get help from your community, you actually had to sign a paper saying you were a pauper.
Oh.
And nobody had, they didn't really do debt. There was no credit cards until the 70s. And, it was some landlord, a land big person who owned all the land, right? And usually in most areas. And then they would pay for it, or they would exchange their farms, the outcome of whatever they were growing, to pay for the rent for the year, right? Like they had this, but you actually had to sign something called a pauper paper. And that family actually did that.
Oh, wow.
And so they don't talk about that in these episodes. They talk about some of the difficulties that they would go through, but they put it all because it's, there's actually a lot of truth in their stories, but this
Yeah.
is not something that they did. But I was doing some work about money beliefs and trying to really help myself, my own family, try to heal some of those areas. And I came across that and I thought, wow, like how many of us actually knew like some of those expressions? So we don't even know what's actually happening 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, how people actually exchange things, words that they use. So to how to understand how to clear these beliefs.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so I thought it was really fascinating of why I've always wondered, why am I so fascinated with history? Well, now I'm starting to like piece it together. Like, okay, so I found out, I thought this was fascinating. Generational healing is that one of my grandmothers was born in Nebraska. So I went to this town and I wanted to understand what was there. And she's born in the 1920s. So at the end of the 1920s, for anybody who doesn't know, was the Great Depression, right? Like October 29, I think it is, right? That year, at the end of that month is when the stock market fell, I believe. And so I went and looked in the year that she was born, in the time in this Nebraska town that she was born, there was actually this great like famine happening in that whole area. And she was born into that area, this town, and
Famine.
and to were all this stuff was happening, right? People were leaving, none of the farms, nothing was growing. It was like a drought, it had been going on for over like a decade or something. And so I started really thinking about that. Like, so if you wouldn't have grown up and you're like, by the time you're 4 or 5, right? Thinking when you might start learning something or be exposed to more people or remember things, you were still in that environment.
You knew nothing else.
You know nothing else. You know nothing about what the adults are talking about. How's their food on your table? And then they're going off to war. How, World War One starts during all of this. Your parents aren't, that's when all the men left to go. And you start really like intertwining, even just understanding birth dates or wedding dates.
Mhm.
And looking at what's happening, and then you think, "Oh, that's how I took generational to heal not only my own money stuff or health stuff, but
lack or
this lack. Like,
fear of
why?"
starving or
Yeah. Yeah, like, why do you eat when you're nervous, right? Like, yeah, there's all these emotional healings for a coach that I work with who is gonna be on an episode actually, um but why else? What is that triggering? And you think about, well, multiple generations have been through all of these huge famines throughout the world.
Yeah.
And you think, like now, why do we, at the great pandemic that we just went through, how many people gained weight?
Right.
What did we trigger, right? Like what type of ancestral triggers for that spiritual
Yeah.
awakening to go
Well,
heal?
and let's one up that because my line of work is past life regressions, right?
Yeah.
How many of us are reincarnated from that era and went through it ourselves?
Yeah.
And now we're in this embodiment, in this physicality. And like you said, the pandemic, we all got triggered by it. Are we stockpiling the food? Are we putting our money away and saving up? And what's happening to our psyches when we get triggered with this kind of threat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many of us have been in plagues and starvation and yeah.
Yeah. So then it gets to be really important. And I find it fascinating that through your client work that you're starting to see that that's also part of why, um, you know, part of how you're here to actually help with that.
Yeah.
And I've begun to even start to simplify the 3D to the 5D for my own understanding, which for myself is just do all your work, heal yourself and heal your ancestors. And that's what you're here to do.
That's what you're here to do. Yeah. You're not having, it's not your responsibility to access the masses. I mean, the information's out there for everybody. There's books, there's videos, there's rabbit holes for everybody to go through like we did, and they'll find their way to it. But clearing that karmic path with the ancestors and with future generations, all of it, it's all energetically entangled.
Yeah.
And to spend time on that. And I can physically feel those things shifting in the office or in my sessions when we go into the ancestors and we start healing the pain and the suffering and the abuse, the abuser and the abused, all of it, because the abuser was at one point abused. That's how he became the abuser or she became the abuser. We came from generations where, the belt came out, the stick came out, the whip or whatever they call it.
Life water for us. Yeah.
Oh,
And a
yeah.
belt.
And a belt and all the things.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
just
the
swatting
belt.
with the hand or hand to the back of the head or, name calling. Why are you so stupid? Why can't you get anything right? Those kind of things were very common in raising children. It wasn't, not by today's standards by any means, but boy, that was a common thing back when we were little kids and when our parents were little kids, definitely. And that was just the way you were raised. You got your little butt beat if you were out of line. And
Well, and I think some of it was, I wouldn't say it's all appropriate, but most of them are out on farms, right? If you're not listening, you could die. Kids did die, right? With farm equipment and
Yeah.
animal,
I
I mean,
know
big
some children
cows and
died. Yeah.
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 I
Even
mean,
adults could die from some of those animals that, like, we had hogs, and my mom was moving some sows from one pen to another, and one of them got spooked and just mowed her over and, trampled her, and she got hurt. She didn't end up needing to go to the hospital or anything, but she was sore for a few days, and she was a grown adult. Us kids were in there. I was probably 5, 6 years old. I wasn't very big. If that would have happened to me, I don't think I would have walked out of that place. That would have been an ambulance ride for sure. So yeah, it can be a life or death thing if you're not listening.
yeah, I find that really interesting. And like, this is unusual that she's still carrying on.
I'm telling you, once you
For
speak light language, it is going to stop.
okay. So
No
so
pressure.
how am I going to do this, right? Like, so okay, so I'm open. How do I need to do this? What it, I know we did light language on the episode before, which is being channeled through Daniel. And so, but how do people begin to know how to, I know you got to get out of your head, right? Like, so
Forget into it.
uh-huh.
For me, when that light language comes in, it's like this, it's like automatic writing, it's like it just wants to come in and be heard. And so what light language is it's a language of the heart. And that language of the heart, it brings in the healing. I can see your puppy behind you. She's so cute. So when you're speaking that language of the heart, then I know when I'm doing it in here, I have 4 dogs now, right? And they will all come in and just lay down. So turn your microphone on and get ready. You're going to speak this language to your dog.
Okay. I answered you saying she was circling and I was on mute, but you knew what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. The lips were moving. I can
Yeah.
hear it. Okay. So you're going to take in a nice deep breath. And I want you to go down to the belly button. Oh, hello, baby. Hi. She can't hear me, but she knows I'm talking.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So she's able to see stuff around you. I think she's seeing orbs around you.
She's seeing what?
Orbs.
Orbs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's trying to show me what she's
Yeah. What are you trying to show her?
talking.
What
She
are you
is
talking?
talking.
She is talking. She's all super excited.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Just start doing that back to her. Look at her smile.
What do you think there,
Okay.
Merlin?
So now I want you to take that one step further.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that right? Is there something you're trying to tell me? Is there somebody in here? Huh?
Tell her I see it.
I see it. I see it. Thank you. I see it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Oh my gosh. If that dog could form words, I think it just did.
Well, I do talk to her frequently, right? And then she'll go, rah, 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 rah. But, like, are you trying to tell me something? You are? What are you trying to say? Who's here? Is somebody here?
Ask her to show you where.
Show me where. Show me where. Oh, so she's pointing over here. Yeah. Are they over there? Show me where.
She do it again.
Well, there was just like some noise. Like you would think somebody was in my room. But so what are you
Fun.
trying to show me?
Having fun?
Lily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She's very talky. I've never had a dog quite so talky.
That's pretty cute. Yeah. What kind of dog is she?
She's a pity.
Yeah, she's a talking pity.
Yeah. She's very, very talky. And yeah. And she's super like,
She's
right?
a lap dog.
Yeah. You would think that she's allowed to climb up here, but
That's not normal.
well, she likes to come up and then like give me a hug and then she usually will settle on down, I mean, you hear her sometimes on some of the episodes, but then she
Yeah.
can settle down, or it's usually at the very, very end when maybe she needs to like get outside.
Right.
But she's like circling the desk here, and she's been like just circling me. And sometimes she'll just come over by my hand and I can pet her and she's okay, but that's not working today.
Yeah, there's a good chance you got like little fairies, or you got a lot of energy with you today. So she's just pointing it out. She's just letting you know there's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I like that she's kind of giving you a direction of where that might be standing to.
Yeah, she pointed over here to like where the door is to the room. And then she pointed like right next to me.
Yeah, I feel like there's one next to you too.
Yeah, I just got a little bit of a shiver when you said that. I was like, yeah.
I feel like you got one of these guys standing there with you. Maybe that's what's on the other side of the room too. Just introducing themselves to you.
Yeah. We started talking about, okay, come here. Come here. I know everybody's like, what is going on? Come here, over here. Come on.
There.
So
yeah, so now you can just pet the dog, give her all the attention.
Yeah. Thank you, Lily. Thank you.
The good news is she's not growling. She's not like intimidated by whatever the energy is. She's excited about it and wants you to know it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting how animals pick up different things. We start talking about different energies, and I've had on a couple of people who communicate with animals, like that's where they like to spend their time, sharing their messages. And
absolutely.
And she's just had a really she had her own medical emergency.
That's what you were saying.
Like, she had out of nowhere, I thought she was passing actually. I thought maybe she was having a heart attack, and she ended up having a seizure. And she was out of it for like almost 2 hours.
Wow. And she's not a little dog either. So to get her where she needs to be, that's effort.
Yeah. Friday she was 48 pounds. She's usually between 40 and 45. So she's got,
she ate a little extra dessert.
Yeah. Right.
Love it.
So
maybe what happened is all the ancestral talk brought all those energies in.
Yeah. Probably filled up the room. My dad shows up a lot. My grandmothers, both my grandmothers. I've seen my grandfather, I call him Papa, would show up. My nanny and Papa would have showed up a lot in my life, but my dad shows up a lot these days. Both my dad and my stepdad, who I consider them both a dad. And they're there. And then I had 4 dogs, and now I have 1. And her brother, passed over a little over a year ago when this is being recorded. And so he was always the calm one, but he definitely saw things all the time.
Yeah.
Like he was super, super sensitive, and he came and connected with me to protect me. And he was a 95-pound blue nose pitty, the sweetest dog ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And you forget that his breed, like people didn't like his breed all the time, but he was super sweet and super protective, but really super grounding too. So when all the stuff was happening, and when he passed away at 11, she's just kind of taken on another level of angst.
Mm.
And so look, now she's calmer.
She got to say what she needed to say.
Yeah. But she's still looking right here. Huh.
When you communicate telepathically with her, what's the picture she sends you?
Yeah. Are you okay? You just want to make sure I'm safe? Yeah, they're not here to. Do you want to talk to them? Yeah. Do you have a message that you want to share? Huh? Yeah. I know. What's your message? And I think maybe if people have dogs, they understand that a lot of dogs are really connected, are super, super connected with us. And when she had this health, this really pretty traumatic experience last Friday, almost like she got electrocuted, and she jumps off the bed, she starts running around, she runs into a box, and then she like flips around, and then instantly all of her fluids are coming out of her.
Oh, wow.
And her heart is going erratic, and she's there, and it's dark. It's 5:00 in the morning. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm thinking something's going on with her heart.
Yeah.
Right. And that, okay, well, she is turning 11 or turning 10. Maybe there's something, because I could feel that something wasn't quite right for months now, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. And then this happened out of nowhere, but woke her up out of a dead sleep.
Wow.
And earlier that night, she always sleeps next to me, always touching me. And she had jumped off the bed and had slept on the bed, the dog bed on the floor. And then sometime between then time and the time I fell asleep in this, she had jumped back up.
Oh.
So it's like she kind of knew.
So not her normal routine at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And then, she's been extra what I've been picking up ever since, because after it had happened, she was incoherent. She didn't know who I was. And I was talking to her thinking she was passing, talking about our stories, experiences that we'd had, how she had been such a good dog, so protective, and just always watching out for me, making me feel like she's why I sleep so well. With her sleeping up against me, and thanking her for coming into my life, and that she didn't have to hold on for me. And I was giving her permission to go. And during this whole experience, I think there was something else versus what they told me, that, that she had this seizure, because I think there was a decision point in that process where she chose not to go.
Here's a question for you with the animals. Since we're talking about clearing the ancestral stuff, what part do you think that our animals play in helping us to clear these energies?
Oh my gosh. I definitely think that they definitely take on our pain. And she's I had the year that I used to have another dog named Shiloh, and she ended up getting cancer. And she was there at the last several years. I would say maybe the last 5 years of that 20-year relationship, where I was trying to break away and I just couldn't. And when I finally left, and then I moved out to Colorado, did a big healing in the Boulder area. And that after we'd been there for a couple of years, she got sick. And I swear she took on that pain, and it manifested. And when she was gonna and she ended up having like a couple things before they discovered the cancer, like oh, I forgot what it was called. It's a disease that a lot of them get. And then they discovered it, and I had a session actually with a Reiki master who was there, who I asked to be with me right afterwards, once we knew we were going to have to put her down because she was really in a lot of pain. And so it was like within a half an hour, I'm talking to her, having a session, and she saw my Shiloh actually transform back into angel form.
Oh, that
And
doesn't surprise me.
that she was there. And just like I thought Blue, her brother who had passed last July, was there. He chose us. He chose my son and myself. And I believe that he took on that energy, that he knew I needed to feel safe in this world and this experience.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've discovered some ancestral traumas. My mom saw a bridge collapse as a child, and I discovered when I lived in Colorado that my mom saw that. I used to have that dream. So I've been able to help heal a lot of that trauma, but I think he was here to make me help me feel safe, both of them in partnership. And because there's other things that are going to reveal themselves of what's happened in, I believe, in the ancestral
Wow.
line as well.
Yeah.
And I think that I think they both take it on. I think she's definitely has also taken it on. So now she's talking again.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about her, right? Like what she's decided to take on. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
huh.
Yeah. That's it's
So
one of the things I notice having animals too, is that they seem very tuned in to us, what we're going through, our emotional state. If there is perpetual things going on with us, then I think that they can develop physical ailments like we can.
mhm. Yeah. I definitely believe that.
Yeah.
And that they come in to help us and carry some of those spaces, and that they absorb some of that energy. And so, yeah. So do, I know we were going to do light language, and here we are off of this
I
whole,
think we are doing a light language though. I think, through the dog, there
Mhm.
is languages. And like I said, when that does come through, my dogs always tend to settle down. When I bring
Oh,
through Daniel, they seem
uh-huh.
to either gather around and lay down. Right now, my kids have them in another room, but otherwise I'd be able to show you they're all couched out.
Yeah. And, and usually if there's energy work going on or those energies, she actually usually falls asleep.
Yeah.
And so this has been really interesting. And it's funny that you say that, is that after Blue passed, he passed on July 1st, 2001. And shortly after that, I was getting like energetic downloads of of channeled energy, I would say, of healing energy. And I wrote them, I shared them with one of my mentors, and I said, "Oh, you should do something with this. This is something." And then she's like, "Well, that's actually yours. That's not mine. That's for you. They sent that to you, not me." And I wrote, and so she's like, "You should go write them down." And then I wrote them all down, and I remember thinking that, "Oh, this would be useful for other people, like the passing of when they pass, all of the stuff that they do for us." And then it kind of came and went,
Hmm.
about kind of like what we're talking about, how they absorb, uh,
Yeah.
and, that their little messages. And now have had three, I've had a lot of dogs, but these three dogs, Shiloh, Blue, and Lily, have all been extremely sensitive and very much connected with me. Like, I feel like I do talk to them. I mean, physically I talk to them, but also mentally, where I'm like, what is going on with you?
Right. Yeah, it's I always surround myself with animals, so I'm kind of the worst about that, but it does seem like, I had any of the ones that are close to me, like I had a female rat terrier that I lost a couple years ago. She was 17 though, so she lived a long life. But there was one point where she started getting this bulgy fluid around her throat, and and I brought her in. They said, well, it doesn't look like it's anything, because it was on the throat. They didn't want to do surgery on it. And they said, it doesn't feel like it's anything concerning. So unless it's bothering her, let's just see what happens. Well, I took on that as, okay, she's my dog. She's, if I'm home, she's glued to me. And what am I going through right now that would be a throat chakra symptom? And realizing, at the time where I was working, not feeling like I had a say in anything, not really getting a voice, do your job, go home. There was just a lot going on with me at that time, with trying to figure out who I want to be when I grow up. How am I going to get there? How am I going to get this stuff going? Raising 3 kids, doing all the things, and not really feeling like I'm getting a voice or a choice in what was happening with me, around me, in my environment. And here she's got this thing going on. So I was like, okay, I got to use my voice more. I got to voice what I want, put a voice to the things going on, voice my feelings, voice everything. So I just started using my voice and, saying what I wanted, putting out, saying when somebody hurt my feelings, that hurt my feelings, let it all out. And a little bit of time went by to where I kind of forgot that this was what I was working on with her. And one day I look over at her, I'm like, does that look like it's getting smaller? And the kids were kind of like, yeah, it doesn't look like it's near as big as it used to be. And then, a few more weeks would go by, and next thing you know, it had taken a couple months, but that completely disappeared off of her throat. And it was like this tumorous growth that was there, and it completely disappeared. And I was having conversations with her, and I was telling her how I was feeling, and let's clear this energy, and da 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 da. And doing that work and doing it for myself, finding my voice in that process, I feel like she was carrying that burden for me, where I wasn't feeling heard. I wasn't feeling like I had a voice in things. And here she is expressing that.
Oh,
So
that's so interesting because she had this health emergency, right? We're there at the emergency vet at 7 a.m. when they open. We
yeah,
actually did all this extensive x-rays, right? And blood work. And she actually has a collapse trachea, I think is how you pronounce it. And she has mild bronchitis. Now, here's what I thought was really fascinating. I used to get a lot of bronchitis.
oh
I
wow.
haven't had it in a couple of years.
But
And
maybe
so
she took that over for you so that you didn't have to do it anymore.
yeah.
Clear that out.
I mean, who's ever even heard of a dog having bronchitis? And we would have never seen it. And she's always been kind of gaggy a lot, like trying to catch her breath. We just moved to 7,000, elevation less than 5 months ago. And she's older. So I thought, yeah, she's adjusting. Well, no, it's another medical issue that episode actually had me go spend and have them perform all this extensive work on her, because she's always been the healthy one.
Wow. So yeah, clearing
So
some stuff.
yeah.
And
So now,
do it.
yeah. So it's like, okay, it makes me think of, well, do I need to go back and take a look at my own throat chakra of the work that we're doing and
Well,
what
and
she's trying to voice. Look how talky she is.
think about what we have now that we didn't have 20 years ago. We have emotional support dogs, emotional support pets.
Yeah.
For us to actually realize that is what they're here doing, is giving us that emotional support, but also taking stuff on for us. They feel our stresses and they try to take that energy and heal it for us.
Yeah.
Get on.
Yeah. She actually is a legal emotional support dog.
Yeah, that's cool.
She's a papered emotional support dog, doctor
it.
approved, because of it. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, talk about her. Yeah, she's definitely talky. She's not going to calm
Yeah, she
down.
needs her own headset.
Yeah. Right. She used to be a co-host, huh? Is there something that you need to share?
Wouldn't that be funny? Just got a chair up next to you and have her sit there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's
Chiming.
been many times where I wish I could understand what she's actually trying to tell me, because she's always talked back. Like we'll go back and forth, like you could hear her say something back. And so I wonder, listeners, who does
What
that
we
with their
I just
dogs,
heard.
right? Like
I think I
how does
just
it?
heard her say I love you.
Uh-huh.
Does she do that? Aroo.
Oh, woo, woo. I love you too. Yeah.
See, I love you.
Oh, I love you too. Are you gonna stay? Do you got a couple more years here? Yeah. Okay. All right. I want you to be a couple more years here. Okay. We won't
Don't be in any
travel.
hurry.
Huh?
Don't be in a hurry, honey.
Yeah. I'm not in a hurry for you to go anywhere. Okay. What else? Is there something else you need to say? Sounds strange, but when she knew we were talking light language before, right? Like she was like way quiet. We barely start to record our talk, and then she starts going like ape around
Yeah.
here, right? Like,
Yeah.
and she never does this ever. If you've listened to all of my episodes, every once in a while you might hear,
I
or
love
somebody
it.
comes home or something, right? But it never
Yeah.
continually goes on like this. And
Yeah, like
so
she is having a full-on conversation.
yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering, Tracie, like, is it is she trying to communicate with Daniel?
Maybe. Should we find out? Should we get Daniel?
I would love to be able to find out because she is like, okay, come here. And
right.
if I take off the headset, I can't hear, or if I unplug the microphone, but I could so she could actually hear this.
Oh, so you don't have a speaker for her?
No, but I can, I will unplug the pod, like the microphone. So we're just changing. So if somebody's listening, we're just going off the speaker, right off of the laptop.
Okay.
So
can you hear me then?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
I'm going to actually turn up the volume too, so that
And now which one is this?
this is Lilly.
This one is Lily. Okay.
Yeah. Come here, Lil.
All right. We're going to go get Daniel. It's interesting because they're showing me like a matrix, like, formation of blocks and third dimensional building.
Come here.
Asando she ode and ojo on se oshano go otobe show. Ovo ot ontoshe onto oko otondo bell. I solo tutin oton shikoto me forian iao. I sartati oto kototo mototo. Ba au shui oi and a duto chuma koto di banta and you. Fu shatati bokota ba achato to mandi yatar korosho di bonto to bota shindi. You and you say tonto. Ah, the dosho di onto koto to boom. We're doing a little energy work on your doggy Lily. She is letting us brush her energy and smooth it out and just clear the energy with her. And she is very excited about this. She's seen those around you before. She sees them sometimes at night when you are sleeping, and they come to visit, and they come to guide your soul to do the work that you do at night. And so she's excited because you're actually awake right now. And so she's trying to tell you, these are the ones that come at night. They're the ones that come at night. See, she wants you to know. She's all excited. I know these ones. Ashato tomai, oh, sukushache me shito toma. Sokoto to shalama aipoe. Oh, it feels like there's some business going on with her chest area, the lungs, the heart. And we're just doing a little bit of lightning of fluid around these areas, not much fluid, but just a little bit of fluid in those areas, clearing it out, clearing out lymph nodes, clearing out her. She'll be able to take in deeper breath. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Yes, most definitely. Yeah.
And there's a little bit going on with her digestion, a little bit just getting a little more movement going on with the digestive system. She says, maybe if you give me more treats, that will feel better.
Yeah.
Just a few more treats will help push that through. Just a few more treats. She's a smart one. This dog sees things that you don't see. She sees things, she sees things in their construct, in their third dimensional construct program. So when she's watching things, sometimes you think, oh, who's in the room? But maybe what she's watching is the room take formation, take shape, because it is a construct that is much like your computer programs. It's much like you watch something, you create something, you build something, and there's blocks and there's things that you do to create and build it. And sometimes she sees the formation, the format of this world and its creative programming. It doesn't make the world any less real. It doesn't make this table any less real, or these computers, or any of the things that you are working within this reality any less real. But it is a construct of a concept, conceptualizing, focusing on energy that is creating physicality. She is very wise. She is, one might say, she is very scientific about it. She sees things and how they are forming where others do not see it. And so she might sometimes want to be telling you about that and what she is seeing as things are constructing in front of her, or as one might say, the simulation is being laid out before her. It is an interesting thought, isn't it, to think, if I were to get up right now and go into the other room, did the other room exist until I had conceptualized myself going in there? And different things like that. We like to have that out of the box thinking, and that idea, or that thought form, does something exist if it is not conceptualized or manifested within the reality of the mind and the program of which the mind is creating. If you're creating your own reality, can you conceptualize a reality that is much different than the one that you are working in, the one that you are experiencing right now? Move those thoughts into that better reality, move those thoughts into that better construct, and then watch as the vibration becomes a match to that energetic thought formation and starts to create it. And you're finding that these creations are happening faster and faster, sooner and sooner, as you get into creation, as you get into manifestation, conceptualizing, seeing, and understanding how it all works. Your manifestation skills, you are creating the reality that you are living in, is starting to become more clear to you, and how to do it, how to visualize it, see it, experience it, expand it, and share it with others, and then move into more of that community, that like-mindedness, that oneness concept, as everyone conceptualizes and builds things together. We went off on a tangent, had nothing to do with the subject of which you were talking on, but we were working through the mind of the dog. We were working through the brilliance of Lilly and the things. Who knew that a dog could think in such expansive ways, right? But yeah, she is also communicating these things to you through the telepathy. She is showing you things. She is giving you thoughts and ideas and helping you to see. She is like an amplifier to your energy. She will amplify your thoughts, your antennas to these extraterrestrial, to these expansive ways of thinking, to the ideas that come to you for books, for shows, for meeting one another, meeting others who are like-minded, to participate, to join you in these celebrations of sharing on these podcasts and these platforms. She is helping you in many ways to create the energetic match to those things that you are working at pulling towards you. Very tapped in, very tuned into you. And as we work with her, as we wanted to ask her what was going on with her the other day when you were having such a terrible time, when your mother thought that you were saying your goodbyes to her. And she says, this was a time, it is almost like entering, you had spoke of timelines earlier, just briefly, but it was there, the timeline popped in. This was her releasing her own timeline. There was, you were correct, there was a version, a timeline, or a secondary outcome where she didn't come back home with you. There was two that played out. And we think it was because you were willing to let go of your attachment to the outcome that you desired, which was to have her be okay, to have her come home with you. You learned what you were meant to learn through that experience, and she was able to stay with you. If you would have tried to hold on to her, tried to bring her home with you in pain and suffering to fulfill your own need to have her with you, she probably would have passed away. Does that make sense?
Yes,
And
most definitely.
this was a soul growth opportunity for you to love something so much and be willing to set it free and to know what was in her highest good and bypass your feelings of not wanting her to go in order to let her have the best experience. And so with that, she was able to stay. You passed the test. Is that what they say? You learned what you meant, what you were meant to learn through that, and you did it very quickly. She's like, thank you. Yes.
Is that it?
I love you, she says. And we're
I
not
love you. I love you. Yeah. I was told, like, in my 20s, I have one son who was birth, and that I was told that I had a daughter and that she would find her way through, and I swear it's in her.
It's in the form of Lily.
Yeah, it's in the form of Lily, right? See, she answers. She's the funniest. I've never had somebody who's so talky, who actually responds that way to this, right? So you decided that because I would let you go, that you would stay here. Yeah.
There's so much to learn from her yet. So much still she has to teach you, she says, yes. Yeah. There's still so much more. But yes, she is a very, very intelligent animal. Well, we don't even like calling her an animal. She is a transportation vehicle for high intelligence to make its way to you. She is a portal of enlightenment, right? She is a vehicle of many beautiful frequencies and vibrations and relationship to you, a vibrational match to you. She's a beautiful, beautiful addition to the home. Yes.
Yeah. So now she's on the other side of the room. And okay. Yeah.
We're working with her right now to see if we can distract her from talking to you so that you have a moment. We're just looking at her and we're busying her mind. And just get her to relax and lay down, move your energy.
Lay down, Lily. Lay down, honey.
Win, so. Yosha, yodia, nipotosha, bewote, wushi. So we want to know, Debbie, is there something that you would like to talk about while we are here? Is there anything that has been on your mind that you would like to ask about?
Yeah, I guess it's actually about the podcast, about where it feels so aligned, these conversations that we have that are so easy and help others, and being able to reach more. I guess I don't know what's missing of, or is there something missing that's right in front of me that I'm just not seeing, to be able to tap into the bigger amount of people who are looking for.
What comes to us to say to you is you're making it too big. Simplify. And we don't mean your show. Don't simplify your show. You are looking for something big and grand, right? Something, what am I missing? What's that next thing? What is that next level? How can I pull that in? And it is almost like your energy is expanding out all over the place, almost in a scattered frenzy, trying to find it. And we say, bring all that back in and simplify. Because this world, if it could just simplify, would be in such a much better place. And if you can move into, it's such an easy answer, it's such a simple answer. And in all truth, there's only one answer, and that answer is love. Love is the answer to all things. And so see how simple that just got. If you applied love to everything, everything would heal. It is so simple, yet it is so complicated, right? It is so scattered. So we want you to bring your energy back in. Quit looking for it out there, because it actually exists within the universe, that it resides within you. If you were to go inward right now and look into your own cellular structure as if it were space itself, bring yourself into the heart chakra, bring yourself into the expansion of the heart and the mind, take the energy in and expand it. It feels much like going out to space and expanding it, only it's much more grounded, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And as you do that, and as you expand within yourself, you'll find those answers within you. They're already there. You don't have to look outside yourself for them. You can connect with the higher self in this space. You can connect with all the threads of energy that are accompanying you. The Arcturians, the Syrians, the Andromedans, the interesting, we want to say the Athenians. That is a new one for us. This is when we look at what is the energy behind that, we see the goddess Athena working with you with the empowerment of the balanced energy of the feminine, the divine feminine, bringing in balance with masculine feminine energy, finding that is one place this world needs to go right now. Everybody has been working on transmuting the aggressive masculine, transmuting the the passive feminine, the what do we want to say with the feminine energy, well, passive is the word that keeps coming, but the energies, the imbalances of the energies of the masculine and feminine, and to bring forward the strengths of both of those and bring in the divine energy of that, and work in that arena as well, as you are healing that ancestral karma, as you are healing that aggressive masculine, the abuse, the abuser, the abused, all of the things, all of the forms of abuse, all of the hardships, the suffering, the lack, all of the things, as you are healing all of that, and you keep moving that energy in. What is the thing that heals it? Love. What is the thing that balances it? Love. What is the thing that keeps everything growing and expanding and ascending? Love. And so simplify what you're looking for. The answers are going to come to you much faster, much easier when it no longer becomes complicated with all of the static and noise of the grandeur of it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Mhm. And so the books you will be writing, the shows that you'll be doing, when you ignite love and passion within your audience is going to keep growing. They're going to keep growing, not just in their own spiritual sense, but in the numbers of those who come to listen, the numbers of those who come to support you. You are finding your soul family. You are gathering those who have been sent here to help guide, lead, awaken, strengthen, motivate, support. They're finding you. There will be somebody that comes into your pathway. We don't think you have met this person yet. Feels more of a masculine nature. Doesn't mean that it's male or female, but a masculine energy, meaning assertive, somebody that can take charge person, is going to come into your life and help you in ways that you haven't thought of yet, or have connections in areas that you haven't made connections in yet, that will also help you grow, become public speaker, become platforms that you have been looking for, to get your information out there, to share with people who you are, to bring people of beautiful stature to your shows with beautiful information. And it'll all be in alignment with that same core theme of love, support, and holding space for people who are learning, growing, and expanding and ready for the next level of information. So you do have people in your alignment to help you to move to the next phase and the next phase and the next phase, elevating you, your show, and the community of which you reach as well. Were those answers that you were looking for?
Yes. Yes, they were.
Love that.
Yeah, because I can feel energy shifting over the last 6-7 months here. And you know, the people that I'm talking to, like Tracie, that are just full of this bigger purpose, and are able to help so many, and where it hasn't felt like I'm the one doing the healing. I'm bringing people together to showcase their work. Though I'm a healer, that's mine, is to actually be the to showcase their work, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And that feels aligned versus, you know, myself having those sessions with people. It's more about the alignment and bringing them all together. And I feel like my whole life I've been doing that. And now it feels like that's how why this has come across now, why the timing of what I'm doing and how it's all shifting.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to step into your own ability to facilitate in other ways as well. You already do it, but do not ever downplay that part of which you play, that role of which you partake, and know that everything you do is incredibly needed on the planet at this time. And every time you evolve, every time you learn something from one of your guests, every time you have an exchange with one of the people that you speak to, you are learning. And what you are doing is you are putting the little pieces in your kaleidoscope, right? You are putting the little specks in there, so that one day all of a sudden you're going to have this entire kaleidoscope of you, where you have all of these little intimate tools in your basket, and it won't matter who you run into, you will have something that you can plant the seed, that you can open that door, that you can have the conversation, that you can relate to them. You can find that pearl in your basket that's going to be just the thing that was needed to move them forward. And you do this as you interact with people. Know that it doesn't matter who you bring on your show. There is always an exchange in both directions. You are gifting not only your guest with information, but your audience and everyone else. So you are the healer, you are a facilitator, you've provided a platform, you are gathering and you are helping people to grow through the information you bring. And so own that, as one might say, own that. You don't have to boast about it. You don't have to go around and shout to the rooftops about it, but at least know within yourself that you are providing this beautiful service to humankind because you come from a place of love and an adoration for this planet, for the people on it, for the growth, for the possibilities, and you are ready to help with that expansion. And you come from a place of knowing what is possible. And you bring those possibilities to others through insight, through conversations, and through enlightenment. And it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. That was so beautiful.
We noticed even Lilly gave us a pause for that.
Yeah. Yeah, she did. She's paused.
Paused.
She's paused for the moment. Well, thank you, Daniel, and
Mhm.
whoever else has joined and that I am not able to see.
We do
Your
think that
messages.
you do have connection with those mantis beings as well, with working with the energies, the vibrations, the frequencies, the telepathy, all of the intuition. You're working very closely with them at this time as well. And we think part of what your dog is recognizing is those beings around you. And so maybe she's trying to speak mantis. Maybe she's trying to communicate.
Wow.
Just know that you have access to many, many things, many collectives, many groups. You are very expansive. You're a highly dimensional being that can move about whenever you want. You can jump around, you can move through dimensions just through the thoughts and intentions of your mind. And play with that, explore that, and see what comes to you in those journeys. And do you have any other questions for us?
No, I don't want to take up all their time. It's all your time, but it's so beneficial. It just feels so connected, you know. You know what? No, I had somebody who was offering to do like a Lemurian connection. And we were halfway through it, and I got a visual of this really tall building, and somebody came to me and said, well, thank you for being here, but I wasn't accepting the energy. And the person I was working with, she's like, no, you're refusing the energy. And I saw, well, thank you for coming into our house and being here. We wish you luck and thanks. And basically they were kind of telling me like, okay, bye-bye. Like, and I never really felt this deep connection with them. And so I thought, wow, like, I thought that was really interesting. Unlike this conversation where I feel connected in a way that I can't quite, put into words. But I almost felt like I was being booted out of this big house, like it was a big stone house. Kind of remind me of like Lord of the Rings kind of a visual. And this beautiful feminine energy queen. And then that was it. And so I apparently didn't accept any of the energy that was being offered to me. And I guess if that's a question, I don't know if that's a question, but I'm curious about that. The differences, like, so we're more aligned to certain energetic forms or certain planets more than others. And
the analogy that we get to share with you would be that of which, if you, being in the USA, if you were to go to Japan and try to give them your currency, that doesn't spend well in Japan. If you brought back a bunch of money from Japan to the US and you go to the grocery store and you try to give them money from Japan that's not going to work in your grocery store, is it? That is what we're seeing. There is nothing different about it. It is currency, and currency that can be spent in Japan, Japanese currency, currency in the US currency, right? And you're here in this US frequency, and they are there in that Japanese frequency. The two frequencies of money do not mix. You would have to do a conversion, right? To convert your money over to their money, or convert their money over to your money. And so that is what we're seeing when you had this interaction. The energy from Lemuria was not the right currency for you, for what it is that you, for the life you were going to be living. It was not an energetic match, and not yet anyway. There could be another time frame, another timeline, another time in your future where you would go back to this place, and it would be more appropriate for you to accept the energy that they are offering. And that is how we see it. It was not the energetic, it was not the right timing for you to receive that frequency from them. It was a beautiful intention, and it was a remarkable experience, but it was not the right timing for that interaction to take place. Everyone recognized that, and so it did not take place. Remember, we always ask you to bring in your gatekeeper. And if you are new to listening to us, we ask people, bring in your gatekeeper, so that only the energy that is most appropriate for you will come through, because we are working with a collective of people from many different star systems, many different backgrounds, many different levels of ascension. And so what might be right for you may not be right for the person next to you, or the person on the other side of the world from you. And so that is what you ran into. And what a beautiful demonstration to have your gatekeeper be in place and say, this is not appropriate at this time. So we're going to decline the download. We're going to decline this energy. It's not going to put us in the right trajectory. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And it wasn't good, bad, or indifferent. It was beautiful exchange. It just wasn't the right time for where you were.
Yeah. It was, it was beautiful energy. I just, it got to a certain point, and I was like,
see
okay.
the goddess, we can see the energy, we can see the beautiful, the remembering, even the remembering of time in Lemuria. There's definitely, there was a draw to that energy to come in, and maybe a little more enthusiasm than was appropriate for the time. The excitement of the memories coming through, of the energy being there, led you to jumping from grade school to, no, not even that, because that makes it sound like you're moving up. It was a lateral exchange. It was just not the right time. So yes, so it just wasn't the right time, but your opportunity for this will come back around, and it will be the right time for you. It will open up more doors in other areas for you as well.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So thank you. I don't want to, I have her waking back up. She quieted down for a minute, and now it's going crazy again. So,
well, we'll bring Tracie back in for you if you like. We thank you so much for that. Thank you today.
Thank you.
All right. Boo. That's all.
She responded. Okay. So, well, thank you so much, Tracie, for being here and sharing.
We're gonna forever go down as the show with Lilly.
Right. It is. I think it definitely is, where Lilly was definitely had a lot to say this show, more than ever, any show ever.
Oh, it was really cool to watch, like the room form, or like things form. It was weird. It was like building blocks or something, and then watching it all just assimilate in front of my eyes. So I don't know what it is she's seeing, but that was kind of a curious thing when they were saying she's watching it like the Matrix expanding and creating, and she can see these things happen. So she sees other dimensions. She's seeing other realities.
Okay. I know. She's like,
Lily.
okay. Well, thank you again, Tracie, for being here and spending, a long time with us. Way over our normal.
went a little
projected
over.
time. Yeah, a little over.
Funny. Yeah. All right. Well, I should let you get to your evening. And yes, I know it's getting late over here too.
Yes. So thank you.